Hello, my name is Izwan and our group will be presenting a case study regarding a client who suffers from low self-esteem. The psychotherapy theory that we have been assigned with is PCT, or better known as the person-centered therapy. So the person-centered therapy is an approach to counseling and psychotherapy that places much of the responsibility for the treatment process on the client, with the therapist taking on a non-directive role. This means that the therapist will only guide the client and let the client take the lead during the therapy session. This theory was developed by Carl Rogers, an American psychologist, and also among the founders of the humanistic or client-centered approach to psychology. This approach views human nature as basically good and believes that with the appropriate environment of acceptance, warmth, and empathy, the individual would move towards self-actualization. There are 6 goals towards this therapy session, which is the first, to have a realistic self-perception. The second one is to have greater confidence and self-direction. The third one is to have a good sense of positive worth. The fourth one is to have greater maturity, social skill, and adaptive behavior. The fifth one is to be able to better cope with their stress. And the sixth one is to be a fully functioning human being in every aspect of their lives. There are 3 conditions that must be met during this therapy session. The first one being is to be in a state of congruence, which means this is a state where the person's ideal self and actual self are consistent or very similar, meaning that the therapist is acting as themselves and not as someone else. This can let the client feel at ease and more comfortable with themselves. The second one is to have unconditional positive regard, which is to show complete support and acceptance of a person no matter what the person says or does. The last one is to be empathic, to have empathy, which means that we have to understand one person's experience by trying to imagine ourselves in the situation, trying to put ourselves in their shoes. And that is all from me.
First analyzation of the case study from the view of PCT is that Kate is in incongruence of her self-image. How do we know? Is that her real self and ideal self is different from each other. Her real self talks about how she hated how she looks. And during the session, she also mentioned that she looks fat and she hated that way of how she looks. And her ideal self, on the other hand, is about how she wants to be confident. When these 2 things of her real self and ideal self doesn't go with each other, doesn't go parallel with each other, it will create an incongruence within her self-image. The second analyzation that can be seen in the counseling session is that Kate's environment did not provide her a space for her to grow up, to understand about her self-concept. How do we know? Is that her home environment that consists of her mother, father, and brother. Her mother is actually very supportive of her, but her father and her brother is not very supportive. Instead, her father, for example, always criticizes her, like asking questions like, why can't you lose weight and why can't you do anything to lose weight? And her brother also expressed to her that he feels embraced when being seen with her, and thus this has caused her to have low self-esteem, because according to Rogers, when a space of no genuineness, warmth, and empathy takes place in someone's environment, it is hard for that person to grasp the understanding of her self-concept. Analyzation throughout the counseling session is that Kate has finally been able to see the positive sides regarding about her problems. How? It's through the counselor's way of providing her a space of unconditional positive regard, genuineness, and empathy. That is why these 3 of things are very, very important in PCT. And now Kate has finally been able to improve herself and also her self-esteem.
Moving on to the suitable techniques to be used under this theory. Before that, we must take a look at the goals of person-centered therapy. The goals of person-centered therapy is to help our client reach self-actualization by guiding them to accept their true self. Now we take a look at the roles of a therapist. So firstly, the therapist must be non-directive, meaning they cannot tell the client what to do. The counselor must guide the client towards self-actualization, but cannot give a solution to the problem. Secondly is empathy. In empathy, the counselor must understand how the client is feeling. Thirdly is congruence. Congruence is whereby the therapist is genuine while listening to the client. And lastly, unconditional positive regards. The counselor is supposed to give the client acceptance and affirmation. So now we can move on towards the techniques to be used in therapy. So one technique to be used is open-ended question. It involves explanation in its answer. Example in the role play, Anis asks Kate an open-ended question such as, can you tell me more about your relationship with your boyfriend? That is an example of open-ended questions because it does not have an answer towards yes or no, but more of like an explanation for Kate to elaborate on. Secondly is active listening. So this is related to reflection and congruence because you show the client that you are genuinely concerned for his or her problem. So it's related to reflection because if you are actively listening, you can reflect back and tell the client your reflection on what you have learned from their explanation to let the client know that you are understanding what they are feeling. So it's also related to empathy. Next is self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is how the therapists present themselves towards the client so that they would not make the client feel uncomfortable during the counseling session. So as you can see, Anis dressed pretty appropriately during the counseling session. Next, we can look at body language. So body language, what Anis did in the therapy session is that you can see her nodding. It's also a sign of affirmation. Now we can look at another technique, which is the tone of the therapist's voice. As you can see in the therapy session, Anis gave a really calm and composed tone in her voice. Lastly is affirmation. Affirmation is whereby the therapist gives the client an accepting environment. So for example, Anis tells Kate that she is hearing what she is trying to say, and you can see that Anis nods her head often in understanding, and also Anis from time to time she would remind Kate that what she is doing is alright.
My self-reflection regarding this whole counseling session and the case study is that this definitely hits home. I mean, I still am the fat girl that I am today, but it does not change the fact that I am the awesome person that I am today. I mean, physical appearance is just a physical appearance. It does not define who I am. It does not define my personality. It does not define the values that I have. So yeah, physical appearance is just physical appearance. If I have this, if I have the enough usaha to lose weight, then that is my strength because I can do it. But for now, I have to live with it because that's just who I am. You.
Okay, now we move on to my part of the reflection. So in my opinion, the kind of theory you use in therapy session depends on a person's preference. So in my opinion, I would not use person-centered therapy in my therapy session often, but I would try to use it from time to time. However, my main theory to be used in therapy session is psychoanalysis theory. However, I do like the fact that person-centered therapy focuses on the client itself. Instead of the therapist giving the client what to do, the client is supposed to find out for themselves what to do in order to help with their problem. So it feels like an independent theory. That's all for me. Thank you.